Alright. That's that video claimed already. But let me read you this tweet by Eric Weinstein today, because I think it's interesting insight into the misconceptions of how the news really operates. And in fact, his tweet, what he says here, kind of reminds me of my old man's idea of how the media industrial complex operates. So Eric Weinstein posits, he says in this tweet, "On people dit en moi," I'm just kidding, he wrote it in English, "people tell me that news has now become commercial and that stories simply constructed to sell paper/get clicks. This is just nonsense. Nothing will get clicks, boost circulation, or sell more papers for the New York Times, CNN, NPR, like aggressively getting to the bottom of the Epstein story." And Eric Weinstein has a point. Would a really great story getting to the bottom of what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and all the various conspiracies behind that do wonders for the New York Times or CNN's numbers? Heck yeah, it would. People would tune into that like it was the Apollo 11 space launch. You would see millions of American homes tuning in to find out the dark news about Jeffrey Epstein. I can see it on ABC News now already.
Tonight, we have a breaking news investigation behind the scenes.
You get the picture. Yes, a lot of people watch it, but why don't they really get to the bottom of it? Why isn't CNN or New York Times really devoted to any stories to Jeffrey Epstein? Well, in reality, the news really is about clicks and eyeballs. Most of news is a resource allocation game versus ROI. Resource allocation in relation to return on that investment. And often the ROI of in-depth stories isn't that great. It requires syncing a reporter or a team of reporters onto a story for not just weeks, but often months at a time. You ship them off, be like, all right, dig up something, hopefully that's worthwhile, that we can turn around and that a lot of people will watch or tune in to read. It's honestly a little bit like academic researchers at the universities when they apply for grants and they say, yes, I need $100,000 for this year because we're going to research into what exactly is the Lorentz attractor and how do various Lorentz attractor curves modulate the sequence of events occurring versus the actual frequency that they occur, and do initial conditions, and blah, 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 blah. Yes, we're going to do in-depth ODE differential equations on chaos theory. But the problem with this is that if your results don't really come back with anything noteworthy or worthwhile, or they're not publishable, like you run an experiment and not publishable, you kind of just wasted the money. And a news organization looks at it the same way. And so news organizations are inherently risk adverse. They don't want to spend a bunch of money on a bunch of reporters to go investigate something unless they're highly confident that it's going to pay off. Often the big breaking stories that are in-depth or investigative are done by freelance journalists who have whatever particular mind or way of thinking about something to investigate it to the best of their ability, and then they take that story and they sell it to one of these mainstream media publishers because it's an even exchange. The New York Times or CNN or whomever, the Daily Beast, can promise a wider audience than some random freelance journal would get, arguably by just publishing it on Medium. And in turn, the New York Times or the CNN can cash in on the ads. And so it's a symbiotic relationship, and that's what usually happens for a lot of the big investigative stories you read in your day-to-day life. And so Eric Weinstein's correct in that an Epstein story would generate a lot of eyeballs, but in reality, mainstream media weighs that against the risk of just spending and wasting resources and the return on that investment, and two, how they could use those resources to get immediate returns on investment. And because a lot of media companies currently are either VC-backed or public companies now, there's a strong incentive to show real money, hard money returns quarter after quarter, very corporate. Every 3 months, what were the revenue goals? Did we meet those projections? And the way to do that is to go for the lowest common denominator material or stories that you can crank out at high volume. And so that's why you see most media companies focusing on whatever will get clicks or engagement. That's why you see a lot of animal stories or a lot of local stories about this crazy person in Florida. Low risk, low investment, reasonable rate of return. It's a little depressing maybe, but that's how the thinking, the ethos that takes place on a operational level amongst many people in a newsroom. Because ultimately, no individual is having one particular dictatorial say what that newsroom publishes or puts out. There's too many people, there's too many stories. And what happens, why these thinking patterns emerge, is it's just a thinking pattern of emergent behavior. When you get so many people in a newsroom, like the New York Times or CNN, when you get hundreds of people, thousands of people, and then the system incentivizes the kind of low risk, decent rate of return, high volume things, that emergent behavior with those incentives gets you to crank out content that's about animals or about natural disasters or about politics, because there's always something crazy happening in politics or happening in weather, and not sinking large investment into Epstein stories. So Eric Weinstein is correct. The Epstein story would get clicks, but not any more than often a spooky headline about more hurricanes occurring off the coast, the Atlantic coast would. And how can I be confident in this? Well, I can see the back-end numbers of the analytics, and a lot of people tune in for weather and animals. It's just human nature. And you might think like, oh yeah, but maybe there's a demographic thing. Listen, elderly people are getting taken to the cleaners on digital media. I was talking to my buddy over at BuzzFeed. They're raking it in on Apple News, for instance. A lot of an older demographic have their push notifications turned on for Apple News. And so a lot of media companies have realized, like, oh, we should focus pushing our content on Apple News. So BuzzFeed and these companies have affiliate marketing links, no different than Ty Lopez, honestly, where they'll say, 12 best items you can't miss out this Labor Day weekend you should purchase. And then they send out the push notification to all these 40-year-old men and women that, and they click and read the article, and you think, does it really work? Are people actually looking at this article and buying anything? Heck yeah, they are. BuzzFeed cleaned up. They made $23,000 off of one article just the other day. $23,000 in affiliate marketing links from that many people looking at their Apple News push notification, clicking the thing, reading the article, and then buying the content. It is what it is. So that's my take on Eric Weinstein's tweet. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching. If you found this insightful, informative, like, subscribe, share. Don't subscribe. I'll keep making these videos anyway. That's the freedom of not selling anything or having any agenda. I can say what I want, even if I disagree with people. Thanks for watching, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.